Okay, I think we can start. We are 2 minutes past uh, the webinar start time. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Um, Before we start and go into the depths of what we would like to showcase to you in this webinar, I would like to paint a picture of today's order to cash landscape. Many finance teams, right now, they are still spending hours chasing payments, they're managing spreadsheets, and they are resolving disputes, plus a ton of other activities. But accounts receivable as a function can still feel unpredictable and unmanageable most of the time. And still, at the same time, it plays a critical role in every business's financial health. With today's flexible and expansive monetization models in place, the process only gets more complex. What is the result? That is it the result is more or less delayed cash, lost time, efforts that go in vain, and missed opportunities for growth. So today in today's webinar about how you can stop chasing cash and collecting your cash which is due much faster and ensuring that AR becomes predictable. That's the topic that we're going to focus on, and how agentic AI can simplify accounts receivable and turn it into a much more predictable and efficient cash engine. With that, let's get started. Uh, Today's speakers, I'd like to introduce you to Clay, who's the Director of Sales at Grofin, and Somadev Mukherjee, who's the Lead Solutions Engineer at Grofin. Today's session will last for 45 minutes, and it'll have a 10 to 15-minute session at the end for Q&A. The guests will be muted throughout the session, but you can drop your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom or in the chat window. The session recording and the slides will be shared via email to all the registrants within 1 to 3 business days. And at the end of the webinar, you'll have a QR code where you'll be able to scan and schedule a demo, and you can present to us what is your exact business use case, and we'll let you know how we can help. With that, I hand it over to Clay and Som.
Yep. Thank you for that, Ashish. And good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here. So I guess we'll jump right in. Here's a stat that should give everyone pause. Nearly half of all B2B invoices are paid late. And the cost of that isn't just delayed cash. Every disputed invoice costs somewhere between $40 and $400 to resolve. That's, by the time you factor in emails, follow-up calls, time spent in spreadsheets trying to piece together what happened. And when you start speaking of spreadsheets, 50% of AR teams still rely on them as their primary tool. So what you end up with is an AR function. It's unpredictable, it's unstructured, it's unmanageable. And don't get me wrong, I love spreadsheets, but it's not able to scale. And this isn't because AR teams aren't talented or they're not working hard. It's because the problem itself has gotten more complex. So let's take a look at the next slide and dive into it. So the cost of delayed cash, when we analyzed DSO data across different industries, what we found wasn't just operational inconvenience, it was a cash flow problem. So, in transportation and logistics, for example, the average company is sitting on a 19-day gap between when cash could be collected and when it actually is. That gap translates to over $5 million in delayed cash. Similar, in manufacturing companies, it's over 6 million. In tech and software, it's over 4 million. So the question becomes, what could your company do with that money? Those aren't hypothetical numbers. These numbers translate to product or service development or even company expansion. The cost of slow AR isn't a line item on a report, it's the health of your company. So I'll turn it over to Sam to expand on this.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Clay, for setting the stage for us. And I mean, if you look at this particular slide, right, we're looking at different stakeholders, multiple systems of records, different ways of applying cash, hybrid billing models, negotiated terms, multiple payment channels. And this is something I keep hearing from finance leaders day in, day out whenever I'm speaking with them, right? So the question to ponder over is, let's say, for example, let's ask this question. How many of you need to check your CRM, ERP, and inbox just to understand one single overdue account, right? Let's just think about it. And that's not inefficiency, right? That's the structural complexity. So AI, what's happening is AR as a whole, as a function, is not getting worse. It's just getting layered, right? And the real question becomes to kind of understand where we are in this curve, right? So Clay, let's probably help people on the webinar understand where they are on this particular curve.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a framework we use to help companies understand where they are and where they could be. Most companies we talk to sit in the first two stages. Either they're largely manual and reactive, working primarily on spreadsheets, or they've started to automate certain tasks, but the automation is rigid and teams are still siloed. The next stage is where things start to break down in a different way. You have visibility, but you have limited collaboration. Different teams see different parts of the picture or different pieces of the puzzle. The top of the curve is where it gets interesting. So predictive AI enabled organizations are hitting 90% accuracy on payment forecasting, right? They're not in a reactive mode, they're in a proactive mode. And the most mature organizations that we see out there have full visibility across their entire order to cash cycle. So the question isn't whether, it's possible to get there. It's where are you today and what does a path forward look like? And we'd like to take a moment and share a poll with you, and then I'll hand it back to Song.
Well, Clay, I personally feel stage two is going to get the most number of votes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. We talk to 3 to 5 companies a week. I do personally, and I know you do as well. And most of them kind of sit in that 2, maybe 3. Maybe they have some automation in place, but it's still siloed. I see them somewhere between 2 and 3, most of the companies I talk to. But hey, I talk to Fortune 100 companies that are still in box one and working off of spreadsheets as well. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, a lot of manual, a lot of stage one. That's not uncommon at all. Yeah. All right, Sam, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. I think it was pretty neck to neck between stage one and two.
Right.
Uh, and that kind of brings us to the slide. Let's look at this architecture, right? Um, your ERP stores invoices. It stores your customer master data. But the problem is it does not execute the strategy. And Growfin as a platform sits between your ERP and customers. And like I was mentioning, what it becomes is the execution layer. Let's look at the flow one more time. Your ERP data comes in, AI-based, AI prioritized customer segmentation happens. Automated strategies based on your customer's financial risk, health score gets triggered, right? And that leads to shared tracking across teams, better collaboration, and finally, live reporting and analytics, all AI driven to give you complete visibility on where do you stand with respect to AR and what is it that needs to be improved. Let me give you a quick example. Let's speak about two customers, same invoice value. Customer A always pays 7 days late, no disputes. Customer B disputes 30% of invoices and often delays responses. Aging bucket treats them equally. AI does not. It segments based on behavior. And that's the actual difference between reporting and orchestration. If we head to the next slide, this is where we operationalize intelligence. And on the left, you see autopilot, right? So more often than not, I keep hearing this question. I mean, I was just wrapping off a customer call and they were asking, hey, segmentation is okay, but is there a way I can analyze the risk pattern, right? Whether they are high risk, low risk, medium risk, without manually figuring out, right? Whether they are indeed high risk or manually tagging them. So is there an automated way when your AI can get in and probably help us do that? And the autopilot that I was speaking about, it evaluates 15 plus signals in real time and automatically launches the right workflow. On the right, you see Copilot, which summarizes long email threads, suggests what's the next action you should take based on the email intent, and helps you draft contextual responses. I believe the question you might have in your mind is, how many collectors still search old email threads to understand context? Many of them, well, probably all of them. And with Copilot, it removes that friction entirely. So AI doesn't just analyze AR. What it does, it activates it. And we don't stop there, right? Summarization, health score, they're definitely interesting. But there is more to it, which kind of takes me to the next slide, and I would like to speak a little bit on cache application, which is touchless and powered by Smart Match AI. So we'll shift our focus here and we'll speak about, most companies, they often come to me and they come up with problems like, hey, I got a handwritten check, right? And I get probably tons of them. It becomes very difficult for me to go ahead and process them. My team is spending a lot of time reading through a lot of remittance emails and manually figuring out which remittance has to be linked to which payment and which payment to which invoices. And then more often than not, I don't even get a remittance advice, right? So is there a way we can automate the process of applying these payments to invoices? And it comes across different sources as well, like a logbox, emails, checks, wires, multiple. What we are looking at is contextual LLMs on top of OCR, intelligent parsing, and proper remittance mapping, right? And probably another example or a scenario could be, a customer wires, say, $87,000. The invoice was 90,000. You also spend time figuring out why was it short paid? Was it a discount, a bank charge, a partial dispute, or something else? So manual teams, like we were discussing, they spend hours reconciling this. The smart match that Grofin has gives you exact, match, extracts the references smartly, applies confidence scoring, routes exceptions intelligently, and auto posts high confidence matches back to your ERP, right? Which ensures payment gets posted the same day it hits your bank account. And this closes the loop automatically. So end of the day, if we probably head to the next slide, we have a beautiful GIF created, wherein we are looking at how effectively we can go through the check, extract the data, cross multiple formats, and you're just one click away from posting it back to your accounting system, right? So what happens at the end of the day is just probably a one-liner. Cleaner posting is equal to cleaner forecast. We've looked at a lot of AI automation and probably glance at how AI helps make AR in 2026 better. But the other side of it, from a leadership angle, is real-time intelligence and forecasting. And we provide live day sales outstanding tracking, how collectors are performing, at-risk receivables, performance metrics. Again, not just data-driven, but AI-driven, right? Wherein there is contextual learning as and when the predictions come, the results come, the analytics come on your screen. So the question is, not just saying, we forecast future cash flow with 90% plus accuracy, but giving you visibility on how accurate that forecasting is, right? And that's where a model which constantly learns, right, looking at the history, looking at past behavior, and gives you visibility on, hey, this is what I projected. This is what actually hit your bank account, builds that trust, builds that confidence, and it's no longer a guesswork. You see forecast versus actual variance. You see the model's confidence. You look at accuracy over time. And that's exactly how trust is built. Well, quite some content to digest. We'll take a quick pause for a poll to take your opinions. Let's see what we have part of the poll. All right, so the question is, which use case excites you the most and which you'd like to see in a personalized consultation with Profin? Is it account prioritization, dynamic health scoring? Is it AR inbox, automating follow-ups? Or is it around dispute handling, probably cash application, reporting, or maybe Teams performance tracking? We'll pause for a few seconds to let you all respond. All right, we're waiting for the poll results.
Oh, wow. Visibility. That's always a big one. Looks like the results are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, uh, we probably get on to the next slide. And I'd request Clay to speak a little bit on why AI initiatives fail again in 2026.
Yeah, I think you know, just to be very transparent, we hear AI in everything today, right? Everything from our personal life to our business life, everything is AI. And a lot of companies have tried to inject AI into their AR and it hasn't worked or it's given them limited success. And these are a few reasons why. I mean, one, AI gets added on top of a dashboard rather than embedded in the actual workflow. So it gives you information, but it doesn't help you act. And you see this in a lot of legacy software systems, right? There's so many. I mean, technology and software has taken a huge leap just over the last few years. And many legacy software systems are trying to keep up. They're injecting AI here and there, as opposed to just building a platform on that's built from AI on the ground from the ground up. So second, we're seeing there's not a lot of orchestration, right? You're getting insights, but no systems to turn these insights into tasks or reminders or follow-ups or even intuitive reporting. Um, Third, there's no human checkpoints. So we hear about, everything needs to be autonomous, but full automation without human judgment in the right places can create errors, and they can be expensive to unwind. And fourth, nothing loops back to the ERP, right? The system of record never gets updated. So you're running kind of two versions of the truth, of the source of truth. So Growfin is designed to address all of these failure points. And I think Sam can dive into that a little more in the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Clay, for shedding some light on why AI initiatives fail and how potentially Grofen's AI in AR is different, right? So with that, we'll speak a little bit on the overall, flow, the architecture again, which is the future of AR. Um, what AI does is it handles signal detection, segmentation, like I was speaking about, looking at multiple different algorithms, helping you automatically identify, hey, these are my high risk accounts, these are my low priority, medium priority accounts, and accordingly prioritize them, giving you visibility on which are the critical invoices which needs your attention, which are the high priority disputes, escalations, or tasks which needs to be resolved with utmost priority to get the money faster, to ensure customer satisfaction. And this all boils down to AI driven automation, wherein customer follow ups are no longer just a dunning cadence. There's a layer of AI with necessary human touch points to ensure um, we are hitting the right pain and we are helping cash get into your bank accounts faster. So where is it that humans focus on? They focus on high priority items, negotiations, strategies which needs human inputs and exception handling, while AI drives the rest with improved collaboration across different platforms, autopilots, co-pilots to help you drive better decisions, right? So collectors and your cash application analysts, they evolve from task administrators to working capital operators, right? And that's exactly the transformation that we are speaking about here. So when intelligence and execution they work together, the impact becomes measurable. Like Clay was speaking about during a few of his initial slides as well. So Clay, maybe I'd pass it back to you to take a look at what the
Yeah.
impact looks like in terms of numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. The end goal is that AR stops being a department that chases money and it becomes a system that manages your cash flow. And we talk about this all day, but what matters most is whether it works in practice. So, things that we hear on a weekly basis are like, we're sending follow-ups through Outlook with no way of tracking them, or we have so many systems, it's impossible to roll everything up into one, or we keep reaching the wrong contacts. Collectors don't have a personal view of their portfolios. And these aren't just outliers. These are things that we hear in almost every first conversation that we have. Um, After implementing GrowFin, Greenhouse reduced collection tasks with 65% automation. Aircom cut DSO by 33%. Four Kites reduced their collection time by 45%. MedUS increased cash flow by 27%. So these are real outcomes. And the key thing is they're in months, not years. So I think the next slide, we can kind of look at this. I will tell you that implementation with a new AI software averages about 2 months. Most customers see a return on their investment within 4 to 6 months. It's not a massive IT project. You don't need to rip out your ERP. You basically need a system that connects to what you already have, adds intelligence on top of it, and gives your team a way to actually execute. So anything you've heard today, and I'm looking right now, we have over 50 companies on this call today. So there's a real problem and a real challenge in AR. And if anything that you've heard today resonates with challenges that you're facing, we'd love to continue the conversation. I think on the next slide, you can scan a QR code to book a demo. We also have a business development team that will send you some contact information. And if you're interested, we would love to continue the conversation with you. With that being said, though, we'd love to open it up to questions at this point. We move pretty quick through this, but it leaves us about 15 minutes for any questions. Sam, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Uh, no, not really. I think, yeah, we have some room for going through the Q&A.
Yeah.
And there was one question which came in during the course of the webinar itself, which was, can we go ahead and digest deposits? Maybe we'll start with that, Clay.
Okay.
So, great question. I think it's from Bala. Thanks for coming up with that question. I'll probably take that up. I'll go ahead, share my screen, and give you a quick, understanding of how it works within the platform. So let me just share my screen real quick with that. All right. So Bala, to your question, right? What we have, or the capability that we have is if it's a lockbox deposit, say for example, right? we can go ahead, we can process that deposit. And what we also do in the process is, the checks and the check stubs, right? We have the capability of reading through these, extracting meaningful information out of these, and getting payments created out of these checks. So, say for example, you have one deposit, right, which corresponds to 50 different check payments for the given day or for that particular batch. We can help you create a deposit back in your accounting system or ERP, and at the same time, process these individual checks, looking at the stubs, create payments, and create them back in your accounting system or ERP, right? So we do both, so that both the deposit and the corresponding payment entry stays in your accounting system. Bala, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Um, all right, maybe we can proceed with the next one, Clay.
Yeah, I see the next question is um, question. We have a lot of edge cases that come in for short partial payments or lump sum remittance across multiple invoices. What logic governs matching? How does unapplied payments not get accumulated with GrowFin?
Yeah, Aksine, I think that's a good question. And to answer your question, right, day in, day out, we get these examples wherein I was speaking about an example during the course of the webinar as well, that we don't usually get, the payment amount directly matches with the invoice amount or the total of open invoices for a particular customer. And that is where these scenarios like a discount, probably a tax adjustment, any FX adjustments, right, or any other short payment codes or reasons come into picture. Now, what the application does is it is smart enough to consume patterns, to consume, how these payments are sort of coming in, and help you automatically create these adjustments, right? Say, for example, it's partially, allocated, and there is some portion due, the remaining could be posted on account. Or if there is an adjustment like a bank charge adjustment, it can automatically go ahead, do that adjustment, post it to the right chart of account in your accounting system, right? That is one. And all of this without a remittance advice, right? So it's a system that learns, looking at how usually customers short pay. You have the flexibility of training the model as well, giving inputs and letting the model know, hey, for customer 3M, if they usually pay less by 5%, assume it to be a discount, right? And the system learns on the fly. I guess there is one more follow-up.
Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see one more. Can collectors override AI decisions? How is that feedback captured and feedback into the model such that your confidence score improves with time? That's a good question.
yeah. And there are different dimensions to it. I'll probably take one sample dimension there, and I'll speak about one thing. So I was speaking about our co-pilot, autopilot, wherein you can go ahead, you can, you know, look at the summary, look at what action our AI is suggesting. What we also support is, like I was speaking from a cash application standpoint, you can provide your inputs. You can also provide your inputs to the suggestions that the platform does. If you're okay with the suggestion, if you feel, it needs some tweak or improvement, when you hit a reply all, you see it's not just one reply that we provide. We also give you options to select. If you feel, no, this reply is good, but probably this is one which I feel is better, you can select a different one. And it learns based on your interaction with the customer and your suggestion. Even for that matter, the health score component, which I spoke about multiple times during the scope of this webinar, right, is where, again, you have the flexibility of overriding the health score that the system suggests. You can come in, you can update it based on your understanding, which means our models are always open to your inputs. And the next time it predicts, it does that based on your input and it predicts even better.
Yeah, and I would just add to that that AI, essentially, our AI model should be looked at as an employee that has a photographic memory that works for your team. So it's there to help your team and not take over from your team. Um, we have a follow-up question. Um, Thank you. How are customer cohorts built within GrowFin? Is there a limit to the number of cohorts that could be built on a platform? So segmentation, I suppose, some.
Oh yeah, I mean, great question. And how they are built, we're very flexible there. I think we were speaking about one parameter which potentially could be the health score, but we are not limited there. You can have your own ways of going ahead, building these segments, right? You can assign different segments to different customers based on your preferred parameter or condition, right? Or you could just let AI do that if you prefer AI probably going ahead and creating these segments. It could be health score, sales, region, subsidiary, anything of that sort. Once they are segmented, there are no limitations to the number of campaigns or strategies that you can configure, right? And even within a particular strategy, a cadence, probably you can start with a proactive reminder, a first pass due, notify internally for escalations. It goes on and on. There are no limitations to the number of dunning rules, the number of follow-ups that you can do part of one particular strategy.
Yeah, you build the guardrails around the AI and it operates within them. A high value customer is going to be treated different than a high risk customer. And the AI knows where to place that customer based off of their behaviors. We have another question here. How does the predict to pay model differentiate between temporary payment delays and credit deterioration? And also, follow up, what signals does it take into account to predict accuracy? I'm going to read that again. How does the predict to pay model differentiate between temporary payment delays and credit deterioration?
Yeah, I'll speak about something here. I think that's an interesting question. So when our model goes ahead and predicts like a predicted payment date, or probably something along the lines of even cash flow forecasting that it comes up with, it takes into account multiple parameters and algorithms, firstly. But the second thing here is we have detailed activity history. So our system kind of understands how customers are responding, right? Is it just a temporary delay, like you said? Because we are storing, let's say, 2 years, 3 years worth of historical data in the platform when you start using the system. So it's not just we are starting with fresh data, we are starting with historical data. And we know how many days they usually take to make a payment, the average delay, the average number of days they take usually to go ahead and make a payment. So if usually it is, let's say, 10 to 15 days, and suddenly one invoice gets delayed by 25 days or 30 days, we take the weighted component. Just one delay doesn't screw the entire thing. That is one thing we always keep in mind when we build this algorithm. The second thing, if it's indeed, a degradation over a period of time, we have workflows to notify you that, hey, this customer consistently over the last couple of months, we see there is a degradation, right? Which is not at par with how they used to pay back. And all the data that we store, like their email history, their history of how they come up with disputes, how long they take to resolve these disputes. Do they often keep promise to pays, or do they just make a promise and not keep it? Right? These all count in wherein we come with the health score or the predicted payment date or probably your the cash flow forecasting. And one more thing to highlight is when we predict, if I probably look at our cash flow forecasting, we don't just predict and stop, right? Prediction and stopping there, like Clay was mentioning, is where AI might fail. But where AI is actually a success is when you see the result of what was predicted versus what was actually collected. And that's what we actually show. We show you the deviation. Is it within a plus minus 3% range, probably a plus minus 5% range? So you know how accurate we were and how better we are becoming over a course of time as it learns from past history and your inputs, right? So that's how we go ahead and kind of configure our entire workflow around predictions. Let me know if there's a follow-up question there, Caleb.
Yeah, absolutely. I see we have a follow-up. How long does it take to kick off the project from signature date, and can we serve multiple teams in different regions? That's a good question. I can take that. It's kind of two parts.
Yeah.
Normally, after we go through the whole evaluation, we scope out the project and we get it signed off on. We will agree upon a kickoff date. We normally can kick off within 2 weeks from signature. We kind of go through an internal handoff process and then we'll set up a kickoff call. So it can happen very quickly. Um, And the second part is, do we serve multiple teams in different regions? Absolutely. That's the advantage of Growfin, is that it's a one-stop source, a one-stop shop for all of your AR. So we have companies that have teams globally or even spread out throughout, different regions, and everything can be seen on one screen. In fact, on the company dashboard, you could show you could show the collector effective index, where a manager can literally manage their entire team from the dashboard. So looks like Sam are you with us, Sam? Yeah. Um, okay. I think with that being said, yep, we would, is there any other questions that we can dive into? Looks like that might be it. We may be ending a little bit early. Um, But again, we're very excited to get on a call, learn more about some of your challenges, and share how Growfin can potentially help you and help your AR processes. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.